Imagine hearing a deafening noise outside your house, and when you go to investigate the cause, you find something even more frightening. One Russian man claims he experienced exactly that. But what exactly did he find? Take a look. It's 2011 in a small village in Russia. A local farmer reports that his home is shaken by a large explosion nearby. While looking for the source, the farmer stumbles upon this. Some remains that look nothing like the usual local wildlife. Take a good look. The creature has a strange head and an even stranger torso and limbs. And the state it's in is even more puzzling. It appears petrified. The way this finding is displayed in the video is also quite intriguing.
What's very interesting to me is that they're drying some corn at the same time. And I wouldn't think you'd want to put something alien next to a food resource.
According to the source who gave us this video, the cause of the explosion was never found. But residents of the town were more frightened by what this creature could portend for their village. Journalist Aaron McCarthy says local legends could explain why.
In Slavic folklore, there's Baba Yaga, a witch who lives in the woods in a shack that has chicken legs and chicken feet. She also steals and eats children.
Baba Yaga has become the equivalent to the boogeyman for kids in this region. Some locals may have believed this creature was her handiwork, but McCarthy says there could be another slightly less creepy explanation.
Permafrost is melting in Russia, and with that melting, all kinds of extinct creatures are popping up, like mammoths and rhinos. So potentially, this creature is something that's extinct that we just don't know about yet.
Now, there are some conditions on Earth that could instantly mummify a living creature, like the super alkaline waters of Lake Natron in Tanzania. But there's no evidence something like that currently exists in Russia. So before we determine if this video shows an undiscovered dinosaur or even a child-eating witch, our experts will dig deeper. First, video forensic analyst Mick West examines whether this specimen could be some kind of hoax.
I think the only way you could have done that is to have modeled it from life, and that means that you actually had the real thing to start off with. So I think the simplest explanation here is that what we're seeing is what we're getting. This is, in fact, a dead animal that has been partially or fully mummified.
If this is indeed some kind of animal, what kind of animal?
Just in terms of the morphology, something about its face looks quite bird-like to me. It looks like it could have part of the beak that had formed off or not been preserved in this mummification process, but it's got a really big eye socket. Birds tend to have quite small eyes, so for me that would kind of rule out a bird.
That X's out it being one of Baba Yaga's chickens. Biologist Floyd Hayes is thinking mammal.
Okay, right here, it looks like there may be some teeth in the jaws. To me, the skull looks much more like a mammal. It does look like there may be a wing. It could potentially be a fruit bat. There are some large species of fruit bats called flying foxes.
Furman sees some merit in the bat theory.
They also do have that similar large nose that we can see in this fossil. In terms of their skeleton, they do have a long neck as well. And going right to the end of what looks like it could have been wings, they have what looks like it was a claw or a hand of some sort.
So it kind of looks like a large fruit bat. But here's the problem.
They don't live up in Russia, though. They're more characteristic of the tropical islands in the Western Pacific Ocean and Indian Ocean and in Southeastern Asia.
Floyd says until this family comes forward with the specimen, we can't be certain what it is.
The process of mummification could take a long period of time. It's possible that this is an extinct species of animal that formerly lived in Russia that is no longer there today.
So I know we're going out on a limb here, but for now, we're going to say this is an unidentified extinct animal. Of course, it would take proper scientific examination to know for sure, but with the Arctic warming 2 times faster than the global average, we may see more strange creatures thawing out from the permafrost soon. May 25th, 2020, Sudbrook, Wales. It's low tide on Black Rock Beach, and 2 net fishermen, Martin and Richard Morgan, are wandering after some unusual weekend storms. All of a sudden, they discover something they believe to be of great importance. Martin pulls out his camera and records this.
We've spotted this poking out of the sand. Pull it out, Rich, see what it is.
Richard begins to gently dig the object from the earth.
Bone, yeah, definitely bone. I'll loose it up, Rich. Suspense is killing me. Look at the size of this. It's a bloody mammoth. Mammoth tusk. I've never in my life seen anything like that. That's thousands of years old.
Mythology is filled with tales of horned creatures, from the Greek Minotaur to the Japanese Oni. But field researcher Ken Gerhardt points to one that is specific to this region.
In terms of the United Kingdom, a mythological creature that a lot of people haven't heard of is called the centaur, or Yale, first described by the ancient Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder. He said the Yale was about as large as a horse, black in color, but it had tusks like a wild boar, in addition to very large horns that it could actually rotate independently of each other.
The Yale was used as a symbolic totem of prestige, both for the British royal family and the university that is named after it. And the creatures were believed to perform swashbuckling duels against one another with their rotating horns. Gerhardt suggests another theory, that perhaps we are looking at a long-lost relic of the Ice Age.
We can't discount the possibility that this is the remains of some ancient Pleistocene megafaunal animal, such as a woolly mammoth.
In February of 2022, a plethora of animal bones was discovered in a cave system in Devon, England, just several hours south from where this horn was found. Many researchers theorize that between 30 to 60,000 years ago, there was a sinkhole or pit that trapped unsuspecting animals and dropped them into this cave. The groundbreaking discovery included the bones of a woolly mammoth.
Just mere miles from where this mystery horn was found, there's actually an extensive cave system known as Clearwell Caves. So I think there's a strong possibility that this could be some type of mammoth tusk that was in a cave system and then somehow washed up and was rediscovered just a few miles away.
While the vast majority of woolly mammoths died at the end of the Pleistocene era, there was still a small number that actually stuck around for a few thousand years longer, sharing the earth with human beings. In fact, while King Tut ruled Egypt, mammoths were still roaming around several isolated sections of the globe. Let's see if our experts think this found object could have belonged to one of them. Biologist Floyd Hayes reveals that a mammoth tusk ending up in this muddy terrain is certainly a possibility. He points to the history of the sunken region known as Doggerland.
Doggerland was an area that once connected the British Islands with the mainland of Europe. There were several large mammals that roamed across the British Islands to Eurasia, and one of them was the woolly mammoth. But as the glaciers melted, the sea levels rose, and then there was a tsunami that eroded away the final remnants of Doggerland.
So are we looking at an actual tusk from a prehistoric mammoth that made the journey over what is now the North Sea? Take another look at the evidence.
Mammoth tusks come from the upper incisors, and they normally grow about 8 to 14 feet long. This horn's only about 27 inches long, so it's a little bit too short and bent to be a mammoth.
According to Hayes, the curvature suggests that this couldn't even be a fragment of a much larger mammoth tusk. So what about the mythical Yale? Anthropologist Kathy Strain digs in.
The Yale was known to have these horns that could spin in multiple directions. A horn is bone, and it's attached to your skull. For a bone to move, it has to have a joint, and what you can see at the end of this horn is that it broke off of the skull because it's fully bone and it does not have the ability to move. There is no creature that we know of, either alive or through fossilization, that can have movable horns.
If this isn't a mammoth tusk or a horn from the mythical Yale, we find ourselves on the horns of a dilemma. Just what is this thing?
What I think we are seeing is the horn of an auroch that went extinct back in the 1600s. It was a large cattle that occupied the UK for thousands of years and then went extinct.
The auroch was a colossal, aggressive, and potentially dangerous animal that averaged around 6 feet in height and weighed more than 3,000 pounds, with horns that could grow up to 5 feet in length from tip to tip.
Like many of the megafauna, the auroch went extinct due to the hands of humans. Their horns were very prized as drinking vessels, and so they were often hunted just for their horns and not their meat. It's still a great find, and there's very few of them known, so we're happy that they were able to find this horn.
Our verdict, an all-rock horn. The size and location are what nailed it. It seems unbelievable that such a large creature lived alongside humanity for so long. In fact, the auroch was even used to battle gladiators in the Roman Colosseum. I bet the prestigious Yale never got its hands that dirty. On a Friday evening in 2008, geology professor Heinrich Frank is homebound on the freeway past the town of Novo Hamburgo, Brazil. Something catches his eye at a construction site on the side of the road. Take a look.
The first tunnel I found was very, very small. And when I entered, I see immediately the claw marks on the walls.
Look closer. Dr. Frank focuses on this, grooves dug into the tunnel walls, then slashes in the surface. What could have made these marks? Dr. Frank's research dates the caves to be about 12,000 years old. And there's reason to think they aren't just natural formations.
Taking a close look at them from a scientific point of view, they don't appear to be natural caves based on the types of rocks that they're being cut in. Some of these rocks are much harder than the easy rocks that would be broke by water. They also have a really weird shape in that they're more horizontal than they are vertical, which tells me that something carved these tunnels out.
And when you consider all the megafauna, you have only 2 animals with the necessary claws to build tunnels: the armadillos and the sloths.
We're talking now about the Pleistocene era, which ended 11,700 years ago. It was the age of megafauna, gargantuan mammals like mastodons, and in this case, perhaps the famous giant sloth. Could Frank have discovered some sort of ancient burrow? Or could such an animal, believed to be extinct, still be living there today?
When you go inside these tunnels, sometimes you feel like the animal is on the next corner.
The fossil record shows that Megalonyx sloths were the size of present-day bull elephants, but throw in 3 massive claws on each forearm used for defense. They roamed the Western Hemisphere when humans first arrived.
One can only imagine how terrifying it must have been to try to hunt these giant ground sloths. In fact, there has been evidence found of these giant ground sloths, the mylodonts, that were actually trapped in a cave in Argentina and corralled and kept as a food source by primitive humans.
Giant sloths and humans together? If it sounds like something out of a horror film instead of history, a recent find will change your mind. At White Sands in New Mexico, archaeologists uncovered the prints of a giant sloth being followed by humans. They were stalking it. So could these giants still be around? Did they dig the Brazilian tunnels? And if not them, then what did?
If you take a look at one of the tops of the ceilings of one of these caverns, you'll see that there looks like claw marks.
So geologist Bob Anderson thinks some sort of burrowing creature made these caves. And what if these animals still exist? Archaeologist Ed Barnhart says not so fast.
Well, some people have suggested that these giant caves are actually the holes and burrows. Well, that's an interesting idea, but show me the artifacts.
So far, there's no proof. No one has captured a giant sloth, found a carcass, or taken a single picture of one.
So I can take giant sloth right off the list.
And Barnhart even questions if giant sloths ever dug these tunnels at all.
Look down in this section here. Look, there's one, there's one coming across here. There is no reason to believe that these are claw marks because they would be repeatedly sections of 3.
Barnhart makes a good point, but if a giant 3-toed sloth had uneven claws, it might leave 1, 2, or 3 marks depending on how hard it was digging. Still, Barnhart thinks it's more likely the marks were created by an extinct worm-like creature called a trilobite. Some were predators. The biggest weighed as much as 10 pounds, and they were known to burrow into walls.
These are much more like worm casts that were into the wall. Trilobites make more sense to me because those are individual hot dog-shaped things that attach themselves to the wall and dig in.
But hang on. As you can see, there are distinct differences between these confirmed trilobite tracks and what we see in Dr. Frank's tunnels. Is this case really closed? Okay, it's true that no giant sloth fossils have been found in Dr. Frank's tunnels, but the marks don't look exactly like trilobite tracks either. So we can't come down on one side or the other. We're calling this an unexplained phenomenon until we get further proof.
It's 2010 near Lake Natron in northern Tanzania. A British photographer travels to the lake with camera in hand and is instantly taken aback by what he encounters. From his photos, you might think that these are pieces of artwork, maybe even wicker creations. But these are real animals, seemingly petrified in place. A frozen flamingo floats on the water while a stock-still songbird perches on a branch. Author Heidi Halle says these photos are so chilling that they became an internet sensation.
It seemed like they were frozen in mid-motion of living their lives, so it was really just disturbing and really heartbreaking to see.
The animals in these photographs definitely look like they could have encountered the ancient Greek monster Medusa, who turned all who gazed upon her to stone. But there's another theory that hits a bit closer to home.
In that area, there is the legend of Papabawa, which is a bat-like demonic creature that would come and paralyze people in their sleep. And there are many who are suspicious that Papabawa is responsible for killing the animals here at Lake Natron.
There's also a more natural theory about what brought these animals down. Some say the red color of the lake seen in some footage is evidence of toxic algae that is killing the creatures.
What's most curious about Lake Natron is that it doesn't appear to be deadly to all animals. In fact, 75% of the world's population of lesser flamingos live in its lagoon. So who or what happened to these unlucky animals that seemingly froze them in place? Could it be the legendary Popobawa after all? We turn to our experts to investigate.
Science writer Amy Teitel considers the famous legend of Popobawa.
According to legend, Popobawa only attack humans with the goal of inspiring fear spreading throughout humanity. So for this demon to hypothetically attack an animal is not how this myth goes.
So let's rule out these mythological beings. Could there be a real-life predator that's causing these animals to freeze at the moment of death? Wildlife biologist Dr. Stephanie Schuttler looks into this theory.
There are animals that can essentially freeze their prey by paralyzing them. Snakes do this with venom. It breaks down different parts of the prey's body and they can't move. And there's the brown recluse spider. When it bites you, it breaks down tissue. But spiders and snakes, they consume the prey that they kill. So it's really strange that we see the bodies of these animals largely intact.
So if it's not a predator, could toxic red algae have killed these creatures? Biologist Dr. Floyd Hayes investigates.
Red tides occur in areas that are rich in nutrients. They're caused by dinoflagellate algae, which produce toxins and can kill organisms, but organisms killed during red tides are not preserved like this. In fact, they quickly disintegrate.
Yet NASA geologist Dr. Bob Anderson thinks the algal blooms may provide a clue.
This is a lake that's associated with volcanism. When you have these nearby volcanoes, a lot of times they have these toxic type of gases in there. These algae are feeding off of the nutrients that are coming from the volcano.
So toxins from volcanic gases or algal blooms may be what's causing these deaths. But then why aren't the animal remains decomposing?
There are a number of lakes that have high concentrations of natron in them that have formed when large amounts of volcanic ash cover the lake, and as the water evaporates, the sodium bicarbonate becomes concentrated. The lake is extremely alkaline. It has a pH of about 9 to 10.5.
And Anderson says it's this high alkalinity that solves the mystery.
This animal looks like he's been exposed to this alkaline type of area. Somehow they get covered up quickly from the water. They're in the muds, and these muds are also very alkaline. And so they actually act as a coating, and they mummify the thing.
Anderson says what the animal's body goes through is also similar to petrification, which turns organic material into fossils.
What happens in this process is that water goes through, and as water is carrying minerals, they take out an organic mineral and replace it with a mineral like quartz or something that's very hard.
Our verdict? So this is really pretty cool. It turns out these animals are not actually petrified, they're mummified. The high alkalinity in the lake from sodium bicarbonate is what causes this process. But that still doesn't explain why the creatures are perfectly frozen in place. Well, we caught up with a photographer and he admits he found them on shore and then posed them like this to achieve that haunting look